Today we're talking about Oko, Thief of Crowns, and Oathbreaker, and what kind of a deck we could build with them, what kind of signature spell might be best with them, and is he any good? Oko costs 3 mana and starts at 4 loyalty, +2, create a food token, +1, target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature an opponent controls with power 3 or less. If you don't know, Oko is banned in Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Explorer, and Historic, so yeah, he's pretty good. In my unprofessional opinion, he's not ban-worthy in Oathbreaker, but he is definitely good. That +1 cannot be ignored. It just keeps turning their awesome creatures into much less awesome elks. And exchanging your food tokens for their creatures. It's just mean. Thankfully, his second ability can't target a planeswalker, although we do have an option for that as a signature spell if we want to. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but first, let's talk about some of the artifact synergies we could use for a signature spell. Thoughtcast draws you 2 cards for 5 mana, but with affinity for artifacts you can get this down pretty low, and don't forget the food tokens are artifacts. Whir of Invention searches your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost X or less and puts it onto the battlefield. And Reverse Engineer draws you 3 cards. Both of these have Improvise, allowing you to use your food tokens kind of as mana. Shape Anew is a fun one. The controller of target artifact sacrifices it, then reveals cards from the top of their library until he or she reveals an artifact card. That player puts it onto the battlefield. So you sacrifice a food and you go get a giant artifact. A Shape Anew deck would only have giant awesome artifacts in it, no little stuff, so you always hit something great. Think like Blightsteel Colossus. Typically, polymorph spells like this target creatures, and if they kill the creature in response to casting the spell, your spell fizzles and you get nothing. Shape Anew has a really nice advantage that you can sacrifice a food token to this. And while they could kill the food token in response, the chance of them having non-creature artifact removal is probably pretty low, a lot lower than just having a kill spell. Rise and Shine looks like one of the funnest build options, for me personally at least. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on each artifact that became a creature this way. And it's got Overload for 6, so you may cast the spell for its Overload cost. If you do, change target in its text to each. I think this is probably more of a casual option, but that's not an insult. Most of my decks are more casual. You spend the early and mid game making food tokens and maybe other tokens through other means, and then you turn them all into 4/4s later in the game, and they stay 4/4s too. It's not until an end of turn thing like some cards. Giant Opportunity is another silly one. You may sacrifice 2 foods. If you do, create a 7/7 green giant creature token. Otherwise, create 3 food tokens. And the card I alluded to before, if you want to turn your opponent's Oathbreakers into creatures that you can steal, Urgent Mutation says, target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types until end of turn. Draw a card. And I want to remind you that stealing an Oathbreaker is way more powerful than just killing it or exiling it, because then they can put it straight into the command zone and recast it. But if you have control of it, they can't recast it. That's pretty cool. Liking and subscribing goes a huge way in helping my channel. So if you enjoyed the video or thought it was helpful, I would really appreciate it. I've got a lot more of these videos too if you want to check some of those out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.